What's up YouTube? Welcome to my first Mage Arena video. Today we're going to be covering all 10 spells in the game. First we're going to be covering the 4 default spells which can be found in your spellbook. Then we'll be covering the remaining 6 spells that can be found around the map, including the newest rock spell which was just added yesterday. Before we get started, everyone should know about spell levels. If you don't already know, each team has a spell level. You can increase your spell level by gaining XP. Whenever you capture a zone around the map, other than the 2 main bases, you will passively gain XP. Increasing your spell level can reduce cooldowns, increase damage, and do a variety of other things depending on the spell. As a side note, the max spell level is 12. First off, we have the Fireball. The Fireball has a cooldown of 5 seconds and will deal about 70 damage if you directly hit your opponent. The further you are from the explosion, the less damage you'll take. Fireballs deal knockback damage and will have a burn effect that will continue to damage you depending on how close the Fireball hit you. The closer you are to the explosion, the longer the burn will last. Remember that Fireballs do have quite a bit of drop off, so be sure you're aiming above your target when shooting from medium to long distances. You can actually use this to your advantage by using fireballs as mortars. If you aim in the right spot, you can actually stand outside an enemy's castle and send mortars directly onto their flag. For fireballs, higher spell levels means increased knockback, increased burn time, and a bigger splash radius. Here's an example of a level 1 fireball, and here's an example of a max level fireball. Next up, we have the Freeze spell. The Freeze spell has an 8-second cooldown, will deal 20 damage, and will freeze players for 2 seconds. Against AI, the spell works a little differently. It doesn't do much to skeletons, it's pretty much useless against the skeleton mage, but it is very good against red wizards as it freezes them for about 6 seconds. This spell has a little bit of drop off, but not much, and it pretty much needs to directly impact the enemy to hit. One very important detail about the Freeze spell is that if you're frozen, you cannot take any damage. So if you're freezing enemies, then attacking with a fireball, magic missile, thunderbolt, or anything else, you are not doing any damage, you are just breaking them out of the freeze early. The higher your spell level, the longer the freeze will last, and the more damage freeze will do. Here is an example of a level 1 freeze. And here is an example of max level freeze dealing about 80 damage. The Wormhole spell is a simple teleportation spell that can be used by placing 2 portals down. Just as a friendly reminder, the first portal is placed by saying worm and the second portal is placed by saying hole. Each portal will stay placed for 25 seconds and each page will have a 45-second cooldown. However, the higher your spell level, the longer your portals will stay in place, eventually reaching a point where they will stay open indefinitely. You can jump through your wormholes and enemy wormholes as many times as you'd like, and you can even shoot fireballs through them. Keep in mind that whichever direction you shoot the fireball in, the fireball will continue in the same direction when it comes out of the other wormhole. Finally, you can close wormholes with the freeze spell. As a side note, you cannot place wormholes inside either bases or the mausoleum. The last of the spellbook spells is the magic missile with a 5-second cooldown. This spell will send 3 missiles that track the closest enemy, dealing 10 damage each. If it doesn't hit the player after 5 seconds, it'll disappear. Now, if you try to run from these in a straight line, they'll pretty much always catch up to you, but if you strafe around them, you can avoid being hit pretty easily. You can even strafe around in a circle until they disappear. Also remember that they're homing missiles, but you need to actually see the player on your screen in order for the missiles to track them. If you just shoot these randomly into the abyss, they won't go anywhere. The higher your spell level is, the more damage these missiles will do. Here's an example of level 1 magic missiles, and here's an example of max level magic missiles. Next up, we have the 6 spells that can be found around the map. The first place you can get these spells are from trading with gnomes in the gnome forest. Gnomes will sometimes give you resources and sometimes give you spells. The second place is going to be hidden under vases in the mausoleum. And finally, the best place to find spells is the magma castle. In each corner tower, you can find a chest which will almost always contain one of these 6 spells. If the chests are already open, don't worry, they'll close and regenerate after some time. Just be careful when navigating the magma castle because you will run into red wizards and their fireball attack is very powerful. As a side note, the higher the spell level, the shorter the cooldown will be for all 6 of these spells. First up, we have the new rock spell, which just came out yesterday. Upon casting the spell, a rock will appear out of the ground with a cooldown of 24 seconds. The rock will also stay in place for 24 seconds before disappearing into the ground. You can place this rock anywhere on the map as long as it's against a surface, whether that's a floor, wall, or even a ceiling. You can also cast the spell underneath yourself or underneath an enemy to launch them into the air, dealing about 20 damage plus the additional fall damage. The higher your spell level, the bigger and stronger the rock. Here is an example of a level 1 rock, and here is an example of a max level rock. This spell is easily my favorite spell at the moment, especially when paired with the frog balloon because you can navigate around the map extremely fast. Next, we have the Thunderbolt spell, which is one of the strongest spells in the game as it summons lightning wherever you're looking. This spell has a cooldown of 14 seconds and deals about 70 damage to any players within a small radius of the strike. The further you are from the strike, the less damage it'll do. When hit by this spell, you'll face burn damage for a certain amount of time depending on how close you were to the strike. The closer you were to the strike, the longer you'll burn. Normally, this spell will only strike 1 bolt of lightning. However, as soon as you get to spell level 2, this spell will strike 2 bolts of lightning. As there's a gap in between each of these strikes, you can actually control where each bolt hits. Just keep in mind that the second bolt seems to strike a little further back than where you're looking, making it a little harder to hit. As a side note, this spell doesn't work under roofs since the lightning strikes from the sky. Besides the extra lightning strike, higher spell levels mean longer burn times, and it seems like it might increase the damage radius. However, it was a little hard to tell. Next up, we have Dark Blast, which has the fastest kill time out of every spell in the game. It'll summon a long ray that pierces through targets, and it has a cooldown of 24 seconds. I'm not sure exactly how much damage this does, but if you're standing in the ray, you'll be taking a ton of damage. If you're able to directly hit someone with Dark Blast, you can kill them very fast, but if they're able to get out of the ray in time, they'll survive with about a second of burn damage. Dark Blast can sometimes be hard to use, but the ray extends very far, and when it hits hard. The only difference between a level 1 Dark Blast and max level Dark Blast is a reduced cooldown. Divine Light is easily one of the best spells in the game, as it's the only way to heal outside of your base besides Log Soup. Divine Light has the longest cooldown out of every spell at 39 seconds. It'll heal all nearby players, including enemies, healing them 50 HP each. The heal radius is very big. In this clip, you can see it pretty much reaches from one end of the castle to the other. The higher your spell level, the lower the cooldown will be for this spell. There's not much to talk about other than the fact that having just one teammate with this spell can help your team tremendously. Next up, we have Blink, which will simply teleport you a short distance forward with a cooldown of 9 seconds. The best part about this spell is that you can teleport through walls, which is especially useful when trying to get into the enemy's castle. You can also use the spell to negate fall damage. If you're falling, using this spell will teleport you to the floor, preventing fall damage. Higher spell levels will reduce the cooldown for this spell, eventually reaching a point where you can basically teleport over and over. This spell is pretty simple, but still very useful. Finally, the last of the 5 spells is the Wisp with a cooldown of 24 seconds. This spell will send a ball of light that tracks towards the closest enemy. It'll deal a bit of damage, but this spell isn't necessarily supposed to be used for attacking, it's supposed to be used for tracking enemies. I find Wisps to be most useful during the end game when you have 1 or 2 enemies hiding on the map. If I can't find them, I'll look for a Wisp spell and use it to track them down. If the Wisp disappears right away, that means there aren't any enemies alive. And as far as I can tell, Wisps can track all the way across the map and will not disappear until it reaches its target. As a side note, I tested to see if Wisps track towards AI, and it doesn't. Wisps will only track to actual players. Remember that most of this information came from in-game testing, so it may not be 100% accurate, and this game has been getting small balance updates almost every day, so spells are bound to change. I'll keep you guys updated with more accurate information in the pinned comment. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.